I'm telling you, there's nothing like a church that's really inspirited, where you can see God moving. I watched this church, their service this last Sunday, and I was just so moved because there's nothing like a church that's on fire in the spirit. And I am so grateful that Reverend Lamar has agreed to join us today. And Reverend Lamar, we are so blessed to have you with us. We are so blessed that you are here. Daryl, did you want to say anything else to get us started on this segment of the show?
Barbara, I think that you hit it right on the head. Reverend Lamar, welcome aboard. Welcome on your maiden voyage on Igniting Change. We're so excited to have you. Can't wait to start, getting into pulling back the layers of the courage that Metropolitan AME Church showed in going after the Proud Boys in that whole situation. So welcome to our show, Reverend.
Thank you, Brother Daryl. Thank you, Sister Barbara. I am deeply, deeply honored, and I'm moved by the context because you're talking about Lincoln Heights. You're talking about Springfield. We are not the only victors. We are not the only winners. We're not the only fighters. And we cannot fall for the isolationist, capitalist, zero-sum narrative. There are many winners, and we can all win together. And I am thrilled to be a part of the winning that's going on today and a part of the ongoing winning we've been doing since Mom Bet, Elizabeth Freeman, sued for her own freedom in the 1700s. This is who we are. We came fighting for justice for all human beings, and we continue to do so at this very moment.
And, I'm so glad that you mentioned Mom Beth. Most people don't know her legacy, but she's in that early era of African Americans who were using the law in the early part of the United States government being created. And what's so beautiful about Mom Beth is that not only did she sue for her freedom rights, but she also became like what you call, hey, Daryl, people call us this all the time. She became a street lawyer, meaning that she helped all the other people in the community with their legal problems. And she became a great, advocate in and of her own right, even though she was not formally, a lawyer. She became, one of those amazing lawyers. And, even when you're a formal lawyer, sometimes people still will call you a street lawyer, but that's what she was. And she and Lucy Terry Prince and so many other of those early African-American women legal advocates just have stories that you just must read, people. You just got to know our history. We're so glad that we're talking on this Black History Month. Reverend Lamar, you went to Duke. Hey, that's my alma mater. That's my alma mater.
I did indeed graduate from Duke Divinity School, but I tell you, I got what I needed from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University on the highest hills in Tallahassee. So Duke
bring that HBCU knowledge in. I got you.
All right now, and you are currently a doctoral student at Duke. Oh my goodness!
No, at Christian Theological Seminary in the PhD program in African American Preaching and Sacred Rhetoric with the Dean of the Scholarship of Black Preaching, Frank Anthony Thomas.
Oh, come on now! Wow. Well, thank you for so much. And you mentioned a name during your sermon the other day, and I just looked up and said, oh, you mentioned, someone who we've been blessed to work with over these years, Bishop Reginald Jackson. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, he is currently our bishop. He leads the African Methodist Episcopal churches in our area, and he leads us well, and we're looking forward to working with him to extend the work. And you mentioned, Sister Barbara, the ancestors. I want to call a name again, Beulah May Donald.
Yes.
who sued after her son was lynched and literally won the Klan headquarters. It became her property. And then there's a Chattanooga 5 black women who sued the Klan and who won. So we have done this at risk, but the bigger risk is not doing it. As you all have talked about Springfield, Lincoln Heights, there is a risk in wanting to win, and there's a risk in fighting, but the bigger risk is in not fighting, not picking up the weapons of joy and agitation and pushing as far as we can, knowing that there is always pushback, knowing that there is always black lash, white lash, some kind of lash, but we keep going.
Well, what I love, why don't we talk, tell people before we get into what happened on December the 12th of 2020, do tell people about Metropolitan AME Church. I want people to know whose church we're talking about, the amazing history of this church, its standing, its impact on the Washington, D.C., and thereby the national community. Tell people about your amazing church.
Well, thank you for the privilege. Well, first of all, let me just say it is an honor, the honor of a lifetime, to have been appointed to the church to serve at the age of 39. I'm there for 10 years now. Metropolitan is the oldest, longest continuously held parcel of property by African Americans in the District of Columbia. So we have had unbroken black ownership of the property, since the 1880s. It is the marriage of two churches, Israel Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church and Union Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. From one of those churches, Henry McNeil Turner mustered troops for the Civil War, fighting to really not fighting for America so much as fighting for a chance for us to be freed from bondage in America. Those whose idea it was, and at the fountainhead of the idea is Daniel Alexander Payne. Many of you are familiar with his work. He was the first president of an HBCU in the United States when he purchased and became the president of Wilberforce. They wanted a grand church in what Daniel Payne called the Athens of America. And what I say to people is it is an affirmative theological statement. It bears witness to the fact that the theology of the American empire is not the theology of the God of the universe. It is not the theology of Jesus Christ. It may be called Christian, but it is not. It is not. It is not. And so they wanted to lift up a strong affirmative theological statement that, as you mentioned, Sister Barbara, that the God of the universe is the God of us all. And that here in this place, in the heart of the American empire, we will bear witness to the God who is the God of all, the God who loves justice and peace, and that we will, this is the one thing that I want to lift up especially, the spiritual and moral genius of our ancestors. Because around the corner is the National Cathedral, Washington National Cathedral, where Mr. Carter's funeral was held and where the prayer service was held when Bishop Buddy preached mercy. Yeah. Now, when that church, when that cathedral was founded, Brother Daryl, Sister Barbara, Black people could not enter the cathedral. But when Metropolitan was founded, from its inception, all human beings were welcome. I need us to juxtapose the moral and spiritual smallness, racialized captivity of those who founded the National Cathedral to the profound humanity of those who founded Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church. And not just them, but our mothers and fathers around the nation who never, ever gave their soul to the wicked idea that human beings were fundamentally different.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. And there's some famous names in addition to one.
Let me call the roll. So Frederick Douglass worshiped there. He was not a member of the church. He's a member of the AME Zion Church, but he worshiped there and gave his final speech, Lesson of the Hours, from Metropolitan's pulpit, and was funeralized there. The greatest American socialist and organizer, A. Philip Randolph, his services were held. I have a picture with at A. Philip Randolph's funeral, I have a picture of Bayard Rustin sitting next to Jimmy Carter in the pulpit of Metropolitan. Mary McLeod Bethune spoke from the pulpit of Metropolitan. We have Eleanor Roosevelt spoke from the pulpit of Metropolitan. The Grimke spoke. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois spoke from the pulpit. Booker T. Washington spoke. The list goes on and on. And from the church, we also convened the Bethel Literary and Historical Society, which was a place on every Tuesday. The church would be filled, and we would bring in literary geniuses, musical geniuses, political geniuses to come in a lyceum fashion to discuss the challenges of the day and to give the people the intellectual and relational resources to win in the midst of dire and difficult straits.
Wow. Because of that amazing history, on December 12th, something horrific happened in our capital. And it happened to your church and another church where they, so I'm going to have you tell people what happened that day. Were you even anticipating that this attack would occur? Tell people.
It is. Thank you so much. It was, so this was during the time after the election of Mr. Biden when Mr. Trump was fomenting insurrection and violence. And on that day in December, that evening, well, actually, it happened Saturday night. That Sunday morning, we were not worshiping physically because it was COVID and we had restrictions. We were not allowed to gather. So we were preparing for virtual worship, and my phone began to buzz, and I heard from people who were concerned. I did not know what they were concerned about until someone sent a link, and it was a link from the Proud Boys social media feed where they proudly acknowledged that they themselves were responsible for the vandalism. They had both video and they had audio where they were chanting racist epithets and vitriol. And at that moment, the worship was about to begin. I knew that we would have to situate and steel ourselves spiritually to connect with the spirit of the divine and the spirit of the ancestors so that we could engage the fight that is our fight in this moment. And so I will have you to know, Sister Barbara, Brother Daryl, that when the church leadership came together, there was a unanimous vote for us to take up the offer of both Cornell Brooks and Kristen Clark. Brooks, of course, the former president of the NAACP. Ms. Clark was the former assistant attorney general for civil rights in the Biden administration. They connected us with the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and our pro bono counsel, Paul Weiss. And Paul Weiss is a storied firm. They defended the Scottsboro Boys. They also defended Thurgood Marshall and Brown versus Board of Education. So they have been doing the work of justice. You mentioned Jewish brothers and sisters who are helping. This firm is rooted in that same justice-seeking tradition within the Hebrew tradition. And so we decided then that we would fight. And we did win a decision from Judge Kravitz of the D.C. Superior Court that we won a decision that is now worth about $3 million because interest is a part of the ongoing calculation of what is owed to us. The Proud Boys decided that they would not pay. They defied the judgment. So we went and sued them again for what they own that is of financial value, and that is their trademark and the associated symbols that they use to sell apparel, to recruit, and to make money to do the nefarious things that they do. And so now the trademark is ours. We will be working with legal strategies to ensure that it remains ours and that what is earned from it does not fund white supremacy, but it funds the liberation of all human beings from within the Black liberation tradition.
Wow. And Daryl, I'm not trying to dominate here, but it's just so much. I just, one of the things that the judge in the original order in 2023 ruled that the Proud Boys had engaged in acts of terroristic acts with the intent to intimidate members of the church. I mean, that kind of that kind of hate, folks, where they, jump the fence, right? They jump the fence and and vandalize your church and grab your Black Lives Matter banner and burned it in the streets. Is that correct?
Well, so they tore ours. They did not burn ours. They burned the sign of Asbury United Methodist Church, which is our sister congregation not far from us. But they did many acts